The final night in Toronto was supposed to be a celebration, a closing chapter to an unforgettable stretch of performances, and one more chance for fans to see Jimin standing beneath the lights. But somehow, once again, Jimin found a way to turn an already emotional night into something much bigger. From the moment the lights began to dim, the atmosphere inside the stadium felt different. Thousands of fans were already on their feet, waving their light sticks, singing along to every sound coming through the speakers, and waiting for the stage to come alive. There was a sense that everyone understood the significance of the night. It was the final evening in Toronto, and nobody wanted to waste a single second. Then Jimin appeared. The reaction was immediate. The stadium erupted with an enormous wave of cheers that seemed to roll from one section to another. Fans screamed, cameras went into the air, and the entire venue appeared to shake beneath the energy of the crowd. It was the kind of entrance that instantly changed the atmosphere. Jimin did not need to say much. His presence alone was enough. With the first moments of the performance, the crowd became completely absorbed in what was happening on stage. Every movement, every expression, every interaction seemed to receive an enormous response. Jimin's ability to communicate through performance once again became one of the defining elements of the night. And perhaps that was what made the final Toronto show so special. It was not simply about choreography. It was not simply about powerful vocals, spectacular lighting, or a massive production. It was about connection. Jimin has always had a remarkable ability to make a huge stadium feel strangely intimate. Even when tens of thousands of people are watching, his smallest gestures can make fans feel as though he is communicating directly with them. That feeling became especially powerful during the final night in Toronto. As the show continued, the audience became louder and louder. Every familiar song seemed to create another explosion of excitement. Fans sang, danced, screamed, and held their phones high as they attempted to capture moments that they knew they would remember long after the concert ended. Jimin's performance energy continued to rise. There was confidence in the way he moved across the stage. There was precision in his choreography. There was emotion in his expressions. But alongside all of that intensity was something softer, a warmth that repeatedly appeared whenever he looked toward the audience. That combination has become one of Jimin's greatest strengths. He can dominate a stage one moment and then completely melt the hearts of fans the next, and Toronto witnessed both sides. At several points during the performance, the reaction from the audience became so overwhelming that it felt as though the crowd itself had become part of the show. The voices of thousands of fans blended together, creating a wall of sound that surrounded the stage. For Jimin, moments like these are not simply noise. They are reminders of the relationship between an artist and the people who have supported him. That relationship became increasingly emotional as the final night progressed. The audience knew that the evening was moving toward its conclusion. Every song felt more meaningful. Every smile felt more precious. Every interaction felt like something worth remembering. And Jimin seemed to understand that. Rather than simply treating the night like another stop on a massive tour, he appeared to embrace the emotional significance of being in Toronto for the final time during this particular run. The atmosphere shifted constantly. One moment the stadium was exploding with energy. The next, it became surprisingly quiet as fans focused on Jimin's words and expressions. Then, almost instantly, the screaming returned. That emotional roller coaster was one of the reasons the night became so unforgettable. Jimin's performance style has always depended on contrast. He can move from explosive choreography to an incredibly gentle expression without losing the attention of the audience. That contrast creates anticipation. Fans never quite know what expression, movement, or interaction will come next. And on the final Toronto night, that unpredictability became even more exciting. There were moments when Jimin appeared playful, moments when he looked intensely focused, and moments when he simply smiled toward the crowd. Each one produced a different reaction. The playful moments made fans scream. The powerful performance moments made the stadium explode. The emotional moments made people reach for tissues. And the smiles. Those may have been the most dangerous of all for an audience already overwhelmed with emotion. Across social media, fans would inevitably begin talking about the night, sharing their favorite memories, discussing performances, posting photographs, and replaying clips. For many fans, a concert does not end when the final lights go down. It continues online. A single gesture can become a viral discussion. A smile can become a favorite photograph. A dance move can become a trending clip. A heartfelt interaction can become a memory shared by fans around the world. That is the unique power of a major concert in the modern era. And Jimin's performances are particularly suited to that environment, because there is always something visually memorable happening. His movements are expressive. His stage presence is distinctive. His facial expressions can communicate emotion even from the farthest seats in the stadium. But perhaps the most important factor is that Jimin does not perform as though the audience is merely watching him. He performs with them. That distinction matters. A stadium concert can easily become one-sided. The artist performs, the audience watches, and the show moves forward. But when the performer actively responds to the energy of the crowd, something different happens. The audience becomes part of the performance. Toronto became exactly that. The crowd was not simply reacting to Jimin. The crowd was helping create the atmosphere around him. Every cheer pushed the energy higher. Every sing-along created another emotional layer. Every light in the audience added to the visual spectacle. And when thousands of fans responded at the same time, the result was almost overwhelming. There was one particularly powerful feeling hanging over the night: gratitude. The final night of any concert stop carries a natural sense of closure. Fans know that the lights will eventually go down. The performers will eventually leave the stage. The venue will eventually empty. That knowledge makes every moment feel more valuable. For ARMY, that feeling can be especially intense. Following an artist across different cities is not simply about watching a performance. It becomes a personal experience. Fans make plans, travel, wait in lines, exchange friendship bracelets, meet strangers who share the same passion, and create memories together. By the time the final Toronto show arrives, many of those fans have already spent months anticipating the moment. And then, suddenly, it is happening. Jimin is standing on stage. The music begins. The lights move across the stadium. Thousands of voices rise together. And for a few hours, everything else disappears. That is what makes concerts so powerful. They create temporary worlds. Toronto became one of those worlds on this final night. Jimin stood at the center of it, surrounded by light, sound, choreography, and an audience that refused to let the energy disappear. As the night continued, his confidence appeared to grow. Every successful performance seemed to generate another wave of enthusiasm. The crowd became increasingly responsive. Even the smallest gestures could trigger massive reactions. A glance toward one section, a smile, a playful movement, a change in expression, a pause before the next line. Anything could become a moment. And Jimin seemed completely aware of the atmosphere. Instead of allowing the intensity to overwhelm him, he appeared to feed from it. The louder the crowd became, the more energized the performance felt. That relationship between performer and audience is difficult to manufacture. It has to be genuine. And that authenticity is one reason fans connect so strongly with Jimin. There is a sense that beneath the polished production and enormous stage, there is still an artist who notices the people in front of him. That emotional awareness was visible throughout the night. At certain moments, Jimin appeared to take in the entire stadium. Thousands of lights, thousands of faces, thousands of people who had waited for this exact moment. Imagine standing on a stage and seeing an entire stadium responding to you. It is almost impossible to describe. For the fans, it is a dream. For the performer, it must be equally overwhelming. And yet Jimin continued. He danced, he sang, he smiled, he interacted. He gave everything he could to the final Toronto audience. That commitment became one of the biggest themes of the night. Fans were not simply impressed, they were moved. There is a difference between being impressed by technical ability and being emotionally affected by a performance. Toronto experienced both. Jimin's choreography demonstrated control and athleticism. His expressions demonstrated emotional intelligence. His interaction with the audience demonstrated warmth. Together, those elements created a performance that felt much larger than any individual song. The concert became a story. A story about an artist and an audience meeting in the same place at the same time. A story about anticipation becoming reality. A story about excitement gradually transforming into nostalgia. And eventually, a story about saying goodbye. The closer the show moved toward its final moments, the more emotional the atmosphere became. Fans knew what was coming. The final songs. The final interactions. The final waves. The final opportunity to see Jimin on that Toronto stage during this particular visit. And that knowledge changed everything. Suddenly, every second mattered. Fans watched more carefully. They sang louder. They held on to every smile. They tried to memorize the atmosphere. Some probably knew they would eventually forget small details. But they would never forget how it felt. That is the magic of live performance. A photograph can preserve an image. A video can preserve sound. But neither can completely preserve the feeling of standing inside a stadium while thousands of people react to the same moment. That feeling belongs only to the people who were there. And on this night, Toronto had something truly special to remember. Jimin's final moments on stage were filled with emotion. The crowd continued to respond with enormous enthusiasm, but beneath the noise was something softer. Affection. Gratitude. Respect. Fans were not simply cheering because the show was spectacular. They were cheering because they wanted Jimin to know that his presence mattered. They wanted him to know that the effort he had put into the performance had reached them. They wanted him to know that the memories created that night would travel far beyond Toronto. And that may have been the most beautiful part. The performance ended, but the emotional impact did not. As fans began leaving the stadium, many were still talking about their favorite moments. Some were already posting photographs. Others were sharing short clips. Some were simply sitting quietly, trying to process what they had just experienced. That is what happens when a concert becomes more than entertainment. It becomes an emotional event. And Jimin has repeatedly demonstrated an ability to create that kind of experience.